Welcome back to Spring into Java. I am your host, Glabe. So in today's video, we're going to talk controllers. We are going to make a slight change to our user registration controller because we have a double annotation that we just don't need. We're also going to create a book controller so that we can add a uh, add a book to our library based on the ISBN number. We're also going to make an HTTP service so that we can make an HTTP call to the Open Library API that we are going to be taking advantage of. So, if that sounds like it's up your alley, then let's fill up that cup of coffee and dive on in. The first thing that I'd like to show you is going to be the API that we're looking to work with. This is the Open Library API, and we're going to be looking at just books. And in here, we're going to be using the ISBN aspect of their API. And in here, you're just simply calling an HTTPS openlibrary.org/ISBN slash the ISBN number. Now, this has two variations here. This one is just a hyperlink, whereas if you add .json to it, it becomes more of a response or a RESTful API. If we click on just the one without the JSON, it will take you to what the specific book is about, give you the language it's printed in, publisher, date it was published, amount of pages, yada yada. But if we were to add .json to the end of that, then we get something a little more usable for our end. So, before we dive on in and get into the nitty-gritty of grabbing that information and parsing it, we need to first add a couple of library dependencies into our project. These are going to be the Apache HTTP components, so that we have a HTTP client that we can use, as well as we're going to stick in the faster XML Jackson data format, so that we have a way to parse the JSON data. Now, because we already have these in our Discord library, I am just going to simply paste them in here just as a copy paste, because we've already had these defined inside of our Discord bot. So once those are in place, make sure to go ahead and refresh our Maven project, clear up any errors that may be there. And next we are going to create a controller. So let's first pop into our user registration controller, because we have this double annotated as a controller and a REST controller. We do not need the actual controller aspect because this is just a response entity that's coming back, and it's just giving back JSON strings. So the REST controller actually sort of has multiple annotations that works with it, including the need to not put a response body annotation on each of these methods. So now that we have that cleared up, let's go ahead and create our first class. This is going to be the book controller. And in here we are going to need to annotate this with our REST controller. We're also going to slap on a required args constructor. And lastly, we need to also tell this that it is a request mapping. So we're going to tell the request mapping that it is going to be for And this would be whatever follows after your top level domain. So after, say, cloudbasestudios.xyz slash, and our case is going to be slash API version 1, and we're just going to call this book. Next, we are going to need a way to call upon our book service. So we're going to create a private final book service, and we'll just call it book service. Now, we're going to need a way to handle adding a book based on the ISBN number. So let's go ahead and create a private response entity if I can type that. And this is just going to simply return a string, just because it's just going to be a JSON. So we're going to call this handle adding book by ISBN. And now we are going to be taking in a path variable here. It is going to be a long, and it is going to be the ISBN number. Now, the reason we're passing this in there as a long variable there is because Spring will take it in as a string and then convert it to a long for us. So that just saves us a step down the road of double checking that. Now, since this will be a post request, we are going to map this out as a post mapping. And the post mapping is just going to be simply what else comes after the request mapping at the top. So API version 1 book, and we'll just say add. We're going to add ISBN, and then we're going to stick in some curly brackets ISBN. Now, your IDE will give you a little warning here, just letting you know that this is a path variable. This just means that this is getting mapped to this variable here, and if we had multiple, it would sort of chain along as it goes. But we have to annotate this with a path variable so that Spring knows what it's matching up. So next, there's going to be a couple of things that we're going to look to check here. First and foremost, we want to make sure that what we're passing in is not null. So if objects.is null ISBN, then we're simply just going to be returning a new response entity, and we'll generally give them some sort of a friendly message as well as an HTTP status. The status is, for this intent, no content. And I think I grabbed the wrong status. Get the right content there. So, and in here we're just going to simply say that there is no content provided. All right, now next thing we want to double check also is that the ISBN is either less than 10 or greater than 13. We want to just return that there's a mismatch. We're looking for either a 10-digit or a 13-digit number. So if ISBN dot toString dot length is less than 10, or the ISBN dot toString length greater than 13, Well, then we want to return another new response entity, this time saying something like ISBN mismatch. And we'll simply give that an HTTP status of not applicable or not acceptable. There we go. So now after this, we're going to be looking to have a book DTO, and this we're just going to call book and make it equal to null. So now we're going to take advantage of our book services that we earlier and make a simple check to see if the ISBN toString length, if this is equal to 10, then I want the book to be equal to the book service .get book by ISBN 10, and we'll just pass in the ISBN. And of course, now the next thing that we're going to look to see is if, first off, the object's non-null or is null. We want to make sure that if the book is null, so if your book is null and the ISBN toString length equals 13, then book equals book service dot 13 and pass in the ISBN. So now one of the next things we're going to be looking to check here is that, again, the book is not null, because this is checking to see if it's within our database already. If we already have it in our library, we're not going to re-add it. But now at this point, we've checked for a book based on the ISBN 10, we've checked for a book based on the ISBN 13. So our next if is just going to be if object.isNull book. The book is null. We now want to get some book information. So now we need to make an HTTP service so that we can make a GET request. So next, let's go into our services, create a new service, and we're just going to call this HTTP service. We'll go ahead and give these our usual annotations of a service class. And we're going to also give it the, actually that's all we need. Next we are going to make a string that is simply going to be get open library ISB. This is the API we're calling. So get open library API, and we're going to pass in the long that is the ISBN. And we're just simply going to return a string that is formatted with the ISBN number in there. And this is just going to be the address https://open library.org, and that was the ISBN API that we're looking for. And if you remember, we're just passing in the number .json because we just want a JSON response back. So next thing that we're going to make is going to be a public closable HTTP client, and this is to be get HTTP client, and that will just simply return a HTTP client builder dot create dot build. That's simple. Next, we'll need to make a private response. And this response is going to just simply be to fetch an HTTP GET response. And this is going to take in a couple of parameters. It will take in a long value, which is going to be the ISBN. You're going to be sick of me saying that letter. Then it's also going to take in a closable HTTP client, which will be the HTTP client. And once we're in here, we want to make a try with resource. And this is why we're using the closable, because it will automatically be closed out once we're finished with it. So we're going to stick this in here, and we're going to then make an HTTP GET, call it HTTP GET, and make it equal to a new HTTP GET. And this is also going to be taking in the address that we're looking to go to. So in our case, it's going to be get the open API, and we're just going to pass in that ISBN number. Next, we want to set the headers. So we're going to set two headers in here. So HTTP dot set header, and this is going to be ACC. We're going to accept, and this is going to be application.json. And we're actually going to be making another one of these because these are both application/JSON. We'll just do that. And this one is going to be the content type. And I don't believe I need that capital. All right. So this is just now going to return the HTTP client.execute and the HTTP GET. Now we are going to have to catch a couple of things here, so let's add these catches in, and then we'll snug it down so it's not quite as big and bulky. Perfect. Next, we want a public string, and this public string is going to be the JSON that comes back to us. And we're going to call this submit HTTP GET. And this is again going to take in a long, which is the ISBN, and it's also going to take in a closable HTTP client that we're going to call HTTP client. And once again, we're going to make another try with resources. And client, and we're looking to then make this into an HTTP response equals fetch HTTP response, pass in that ISBN and the HTTP client. Next, we are going to return the entity utils.toString so that we can take the response and map it back to a string value. So that is our entity utils.toString, and we want the response entity get the entity, and we want to tell it what sort of format we're looking to get this in. So that would be the UTF-8. Perfect. And we're just gonna catch the same thing. So now that we have this done, we can hop back into our book controller, and here we can make a variable here that is just going to be the response, and this will be equal to that of what we just created. So now we need to add another private final HTTP service so that we can now come down here and call HTTP service dot submit, pass in the ISBN, and make another call to the HTTP service to get the client. Now, the only thing left to do next is to make sure that the response is not null, and if it isn't null, then we want to return the response. So, if objects.nonNull response, then return new response entity response with an HTTP status as well of just created. And there we go. And if all else fails, then the book is already within our library, so there's no need to go fetch it. So return new response entity. Book is already within our library. And this will just be an HTTP status of OK. Okay, so now, how can we go ahead and try this and make sure it works? Let's go ahead and fire it up. And while that's firing up, I am going to also be firing up another little tool called Postman. All right, so now that everything is fired up, we're going to make a post request inside of our Postman, and this is going to be to our http localhost 8080 API v1 book add ISBN and here we need to provide an actual number. So slap on this number that came from the tutorial that we had, and let's make a post request. You'll see here that it was 201 created, like we had expected. Just go ahead and grab all that and make it easier to read. You'll see that the response that we got back contains the publisher, title, authors, which we will link to in another tutorial. We'll show you how you can follow redirects and map further along. We can see the page count, the title of the book, as well as some notes, number of pages, its ISB 13 number because we passed in an ISBN 10. These are the different subjects of it: works, types, covers, yada yada yada. And in our next video, we'll show you how to take that in, parse it through JSON with our Jackson XML, and map the needed data to our book object before we save it to our library. So if this video was enlightening to you, please go ahead and give me a like. if you are looking forward to future videos, please subscribe and be notified when I release my new videos. I do apologize for the time that it took me to get this video from the last video. I've just been a little ill. However, I am back on track, so I will be pumping out more regular videos. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.